Firegirl Chapter 2. Monday morning, I slid into my seat in Mrs. Tracy's classroom. It seems strange now to think that I don't know anything about Jessica Feeney then. She was only a few minutes away, and I had no clue that she even existed. I had spent most of Sunday sitting on my bed with my car magazines around me. The window let in all the warm air, and I remember wondering if it would still be warm 13 days later when the cobra came. My seat in the class was the first one in the first row by the hall door. It was odd that it was even the first seat. Where you sat in all the classrooms at St. Catherine's was in alphabetical order, and every year before there were kids sitting in front of me. Bender isn't usually the first name. Kids with names like Anderson or Arnold or Baker were some of the ones who sat in front of me in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. 2 years ago, a girl named Jennifer Aaron sat at the head of the first row. She probably always has had that seat, I thought. But I also thought it was strange because I had heard that Aaron was a Jewish name from the Bible, and why would a Jewish girl be going to Catholic school? But when I told my mother about her, she said I should just go and ask her. But I never did find out. Jennifer transferred to public middle school last year, and two girls from the other class, Trisha Anderson and Cindy Bemioli, were in front of me for 6th. Jeff hadn't been on the bus that morning, but he was already sitting in his seat next to me at the head of row 2. He didn't say anything when I said, "Hey." He just sat there quietly and chewed his fingernails, which he did a lot without thinking. I guessed his mother had driven him in because he missed the bus. She probably wasn't happy about it, and so they probably had a fight. Jeff seemed to get mad a lot more since his father went away. I usually just left him alone, and pretty soon he'd be okay. Right now, his head was bent to the side, and he was turning his fingertips in his teeth. His tie was loose around his neck, and his top shirt button was undone. I remember thinking that his mother must have washed his shirt over the weekend, or it was an extra one, because there were no spots on it. Maybe they had a fight about the shirt, too. His legs dangled out into the teacher's area at the front of the classroom. Mrs. Tracy had asked him a couple of times already that year to reel his legs back under his desk. He was stretching them out when she just came in. "Scoot your legs in, Jeff. Your slouching will curve your spine," she said. "You'll be stooped over as an old man by the time you're 30. She walked past and set down a pile of papers in the middle of her desk. 30 is an old man," said Jeff, taking his fingers out of his teeth and half looking around, laughing. I snickered when I saw him joking. Maybe he was okay again. Mrs. Tracy narrowed her eyes at him and smiled. "You'll feel different when you get to that age." "I know," he said. "I'll feel old." All right, she said, but the class cracked up anyway. Another busload of kids came in after the second bell. Melissa Meyer, who was sort of chubby like me, came in laughing with Stephanie Pastor, who looked a little like a boy if you saw her from the right side. Kayla Brown plopped a paper on the teacher's desk and then sat behind me. She was freckled and had red hair, and it was as small as the girls in 5th grade. Rich Downing came in running and jumped into his seat behind Kayla as if he were trying to win a race. His jacket was under his arm and his shirt was coming out of the back. When he tucked it in, I saw the same little V-shaped rip at the top of the rear seam of his waist that I had seen for the last couple of weeks. I knew that Rich was trying not to eat as much, so his pants wouldn't tear on him, but it was happening anyway. The pants I was wearing that year were the ones I had gotten last spring, and that weren't too tight, so I wasn't in trouble yet. Like Jeff, Rich liked to crack jokes in class, but he was never as funny or as quick as Jeff. Samantha Embriano came by and sat in the last seat of my row. She had black hair and a round face and eyebrows that almost met over her nose. She always said her last name together with her first name. Samantha Embriano. Samantha Embriano. It was always like that. It would be like me calling myself Tim Bender. Hi, I'm Tom Bender. Tom Bender here. You just don't do that. I think at first she said her name like that because there must have been a year or two when she shared the same first name with someone else in her class, Samantha Baker or Samantha Taylor. But she continued to say Samantha Embriano every time, even though that was not true anymore. Now we all called her that, Samantha Embriano. Just after prayers, when everybody stood up and held hands together and prayed along with Mrs. Tracy. Hold hands? No way, Eric Lobianco said every time. And I leaned over to Jeff. We're on for next weekend, right? I asked. Not this one, but the next one. Next weekend? He said. The Cobra, I whispered. Jeff's face unclouded. He smiled. Yeah, my uncle's coming over. I smiled too. Yeah, he's coming over, and yeah, it's going to be awesome. Mrs. Tracy was still fiddling with something, and I scanned the room. I knew that no one else in the class was going to be riding in an awesome red Cobra next weekend, or probably ever. As I was thinking this and watching the last of the bus kids get into their seats, my eyes finally came to the last seat of the last row.